For millennia, the wisdom of Thoth has guided seekers on the path of deep healing and true spiritual enlightenment. But what few know is that his teachings hide a vibrational code that was sealed and is now reactivating. In this video, you'll discover ancient self-healing practices revealed by Thoth that were silenced for ages, but still live within you. And if this video has crossed your path, it's because the time has come to remember your health, your balance, your vital energy. Don't depend on outside formulas. They are born from a field that vibrates in silence, and that you're going to learn how to awaken. Stay until the end, because today you're going to access what was hidden. And once you feel it, your body will never be the same. The body is the instrument of the soul. When it is silent, the body screams. This is where the veil starts to tear. When the inner calling intensifies, something mysterious happens. Ancient symbols begin to resonate. Names that once felt distant start to vibrate within you, as if they were part of a forgotten memory. And among those names, one echoes louder than all the others: Thoth. But Thoth wasn't a mythological god, like the common stories try to portray. He was a living archetype, an intelligent principle that represents the point where knowledge turns into vibrational power. In Egyptian tradition, he's described as the scribe of the gods, but what few realize is what he was actually writing. Thoth didn't record stories, he encoded frequencies. Each of his teachings is like a formula, a vibrational equation hidden under symbolic words, metaphors, and sacred images. The famous Emerald Tablet was just a fragment of that, a superficial sample of a knowledge that wasn't meant to be merely read, but to be activated. Because true knowledge isn't learned, it's remembered. And that's exactly what Thoth offers, a vibrational mirror that makes you remember what has always been within you, but was covered by layers of mental programming. He doesn't create doctrine. He reveals an invisible architecture that connects all things. A silent field that vibrates behind matter and organizes reality. This field is the bridge between the spiritual and the physical. That's why, while the world searches for external cures, ready-made formulas, diagnoses, and medications, Thoth's teachings point inward. He said, "Reality responds to the field you hold, not to what you say or show." In other words, the universe doesn't listen to your speech, it feels your vibration. That's why so many people seek change and can't find it. They're trying to manipulate the effects while the cause remains untouched. Thoth knew this, and that's why his codes were sealed, because they could only be accessed by those willing to let go of the illusion of form and dive into the invisible center of the experience. A point within that doesn't react, doesn't judge, doesn't play the victim. It simply observes, vibrates, creates. And among the many records attributed to Thoth, there's one aspect that's always been left out of the popular versions. He taught that healing wasn't a physical process, but the result of a reorganized field. And that changes everything, because it shifts the focus from the illness to the frequency that allowed the illness to be born. But this teaching was erased, hidden, distorted, because it empowers, it deprograms, it liberates. And someone who discovers that their body is just the projection of an imbalanced energy field can no longer be controlled by systems that profit from suffering. They stop searching outside and start aligning with the creative source. That alignment is the true purpose of Thoth's writings. It wasn't about religion. It was about vibrational engineering, about consciously manipulating the invisible matrix of reality with presence, with inner power. And once you understand that, you begin to see that many of your symptoms, your pains, your blockages didn't happen by chance. They were precise responses from a field you yourself emitted. the world responded to your frequency. And that's the frequency that needs to be recalibrated. But to do that, you need to access the deepest code Thoth left hidden in time. The forgotten code, where true self-healing is born. This deeper code was never something external. It has always been inside you. But the conditioned mind learned to look outside, to expect formulas, to follow ready-made steps. And that's what took us away from the original wisdom. The secret of self-healing doesn't require candles, altars, or magic words. It doesn't need intermediaries, promises, or sacrifices. Because the true key isn't mystical. It's vibrational. Everything that exists vibrates. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions, your habits. Every part of your life carries a specific frequency. And Thoth made it clear. What you maintain as a constant frequency shapes what your body accepts or rejects. If you vibrate conflict, the body goes to war. If you vibrate fear, the body shuts down. If you vibrate denial, the body gets sick. But if you vibrate presence, acceptance, clarity, the body starts to remember how to regenerate. Because the body knows how to heal. Illness isn't the end of the process. It's a call for realignment. But that natural memory has been suppressed. Over the centuries, we were conditioned to ignore internal signals and depend on external stimuli. We lost the connection with the vibrational language the body understands. And that language is subtle. It doesn't show up in words, but in coherence. Coherence is when what you think, feel, and do are aligned on the same frequency. It's when there's no inner noise. It's when you say yes and the body vibrates yes. It's when you feel love and act with love. It's when you want something that doesn't conflict with what you believe. That coherence is rare, because almost no one lives what they think. Few feel what they say. Many talk about peace, but live in tension. They repeat positive affirmations, but vibrate scarcity. They say they believe in good, but live trapped in guilt and fear. And it's precisely that internal dissonance that blocks the vital flow, because the body is sensitive to the truth. It doesn't respond to what is said, it responds to what is real. Thoth taught that healing happens when the field becomes whole. When the energy that sustains your being stops swinging between extremes and begins to stabilize in a high vibrational state. And that doesn't require effort, it requires presence. Self-healing isn't magical, it's natural. It's the return to the original state before mental contamination. And that can be accessed by anyone. You just need to break the cycle of incoherence. There's a simple practice, so simple that many ignore it, because we were taught to believe that anything deep has to be difficult. But this practice is the foundation of all vibrational transformation, and when it's done with awareness, the field begins to respond immediately. The practice begins in silence. But it's not just any silence. It's a silence you choose, a silence that interrupts the noise of the world and creates space for your energy field to reorganize. Because when you stop, the field listens. And when the field listens, it responds. Thoth said the first step to healing any distortion was to stop the unconscious repetition, and that only happens when you enter a state of vibrational pause. This pause is created by 3 tools: visualization, breath, and presence. Visualization isn't random imagination, it's an internal construction of frequency. When you close your eyes and visualize your entire body being filled with light, for example, you're redrawing the vibrational structure of your field. You're sending information beyond thought. You're transmitting a direct command to the invisible matrix of your existence. But that command needs support, and that's where breath comes in. Breath is the thread between the physical world and the invisible. It's the only process that happens automatically, but can also be consciously guided. And when you breathe intentionally, your field shifts frequency instantly. Because the air that enters with presence carries information. It cleans, it reorganizes, it disarms, triggers, it makes room for the new. It's in this state that the body begins to respond. You don't force, you don't push, you don't fight the pain, you tune in. And when tuning happens, the body starts to do what it's always known how to do: restore, regenerate, rebalance. This is the moment when the field begins to correct itself. And here's the most powerful point of all: the field is reversible. That means even if you've spent years holding a distorted frequency, realignment can happen in a single moment. Not because time passed, but because the vibration changed. But for that to happen, you have to cross an invisible point. There's a moment in this process where the field goes through a collapse. And that collapse isn't destruction. It's reprogramming. It's the instant when the old vibration clashes with the new one, and everything that's no longer compatible begins to fall away. People, situations, thoughts, emotions. Everything that doesn't vibrate at the new frequency starts to drift away. Not by rational choice, but by resonance. And this point is decisive. The stage of reverberation, when the external world begins to mirror your new frequency. It happens in the body, the mind, and in everyday life. And when it arrives, it doesn't give a warning. It comes as an internal break, an invisible cut from everything that no longer supports who you are becoming. From one day to the next, certain foods start to feel heavy. The coffee that used to give you energy now makes you feel anxious. The food that was always part of your routine starts causing discomfort that didn't make sense before. The body, little by little, starts saying no. But it's not a rational no. It's an energetic no. A no that comes from your essence. And it doesn't stop there. Environments that once felt familiar now seem draining. Places you used to go naturally start to trigger anxiety, discomfort, even nausea. Some conversations that once felt harmless now feel heavy. And the most intense part, people who were always around start to drift away, as if something between you no longer fits. None of this is a coincidence. When you shift your frequency, the reality around you starts to rearrange its pieces, not out of malice, but out of resonance. What doesn't vibrate with your new frequency simply can't stay in the same field. And this is one of the most delicate phases of the process, because all of this happens quietly. Without rational explanations, medicine can't find the cause of the symptoms. Friends don't understand your distance. Family says you've changed too much, and in fact you have changed, but it wasn't by choice. It was by coherence. The field started to push out what's no longer compatible. And that expulsion can feel painful at first, because it involves loss. It involves letting go. It involves accepting that what served you for years now weakens you. And the body doesn't lie. It doesn't rationalize. It reacts. This is the point where many people pull back. Because this is when healing truly begins. Not when the symptoms go away, but when the old reality starts to dissolve. Because healing isn't just restoring the body. It's breaking the invisible ties that kept your vibrational identity stuck in past patterns. And that break creates space. Space for the new to enter. Space for truth to emerge. Space for another reality to form around you. But only those who trust get through this point. Those who don't cling to the old. Those who understand that discomfort isn't punishment. It's transition. Because the old vibration needs to die for the new one to be born. And when it's born, something deep happens. The world around you starts to change. But not because you forced it. Not because you asked. Because you became. This is the stage where reality stops working through effort and starts responding through resonance. You no longer have to chase. You no longer need to repeat mantras hoping something will happen. You don't need to convince the universe of anything. Because your presence already carries the frequency of what you used to seek. It's strange at first. You think of someone and they show up. You feel drawn to a place and something takes you there. You let go of a desire and it manifests the right way, at the exact moment. And then you realize, it's not magic. It's vibrational coherence operating in an open field. Thoth explained this in a simple yet powerful way. He said the universe doesn't understand words, it understands state. And that state is a sustained vibration, not an emotional high, not a momentary excitement. It's a whole field that stabilizes. When that happens, reality starts to perceive you as a point of influence, and everything around starts to reflect. People begin to change around you, not because you said something, but because your vibration disarms the games that used to hold relationships together. The collective chaos doesn't hit you the same way. The anxiety that used to fill the room can no longer find you. You stop being part of the noise and become a center of harmony, but this requires consistency. It's much easier to fall back into old patterns when the outside tries to pull you back. But if you hold the new frequency, the world can no longer touch you with the same force, because you stopped being a reaction and became a source. At this point, healing stops being something individual. Your vibration starts generating healing in the field of those around you, not because you decided to do it, but because your frequency begins to function like a mirror. Whoever comes into contact with you starts to see themselves more clearly. They start to notice their own noise, and that alone begins a process of transformation. This is the stage of reverberation. The healing you activated in yourself starts to echo beyond you. Presence becomes medicine. The calm you carry silences the fear of others. The truth you hold dissolves lies that were hidden in relationships, environments, structures. And it's in this silence that a law begins to move. The hidden vibrational law, the one that was hidden from humanity for thousands of years. It doesn't show up in books. It's not described in ready-made formulas. Not even the oldest manuscripts talk about it openly. Because this law isn't meant to be explained, it's meant to be felt. It's not theoretical, it's experiential. Thoth encoded it in symbols, in geometries, in metaphors that can only be understood by those already vibrating at the right frequency. Anyone who tries to understand this law with the linear mind gets lost, because it can't be explained with words. It reveals itself through vibrational coherence. That's why it was forgotten for millennia. Even advanced initiatic schools, mystical orders, hidden traditions. Many touched its edges, but few crossed into its center. This law can't be manipulated. It doesn't obey requests. It only activates when the being aligns with it. And that alignment isn't made of effort. It's made of truth. When you hold a stable, clean, and whole vibration, this law starts to act automatically. No rituals, no warnings. And when it activates, everything around seems to respond intelligently, almost supernaturally. But it's not a miracle. It's energetic math. A stabilized high vibration changes how reality recognizes you. It's like the universe starts to read you differently, not as someone who needs to fight, resist, or beg, but as someone who already vibrates what they're seeking. And when that happens, the body responds in unexpected ways. Because this law doesn't just act in the external field. It starts within your cellular structure. Dormant codes in your DNA are activated. Information that had been switched off, layers of your consciousness that were silenced by trauma, fear, and conditioning start to reorganize. And the body begins to access ancient records, original memories that were there all along, waiting for the right moment to awaken. In practice, self-healing isn't creation, it's memory. It's the body remembering who you are without the interference of the stories you were told. Before the pain, before the shame, before the guilt. Before being shaped by beliefs that told you what was right, what was possible, what was allowed. The body holds an original matrix, and that matrix is perfect. but it was covered up, covered by layers of adaptation, of survival, of defense. Illness is often just a reflection of disconnection from that matrix. It's the body crying out for a return to its natural state. And when the right vibration is sustained long enough, what was blocked begins to flow again. Thoth said, "Everything that becomes ill is born from the forgetting of the self." Because when the being forgets who they are, they disconnect from the source they came from. And disconnected, everything weakens. Vital energy drops. The immune system gets confused. The body loses its reference. But when the field aligns with the inner truth, the body reorganizes as if it's accessing a hidden code. And it is. That code isn't anywhere outside. It's imprinted in you. And when that code starts being read again, something amazing happens to the illnesses that seemed fixed, chronic, inevitable. They simply lose the energetic foundation that was holding them. The unexplainable disappearance. Cases, records, and studies with no medical explanation. And when that happens, conventional medicine often doesn't know how to explain it. Test results change. Diagnoses dissolve. Symptoms disappear without pharmaceutical treatment, without surgery, without any apparent clinical explanation. And yet, it happens. Stories like this exist by the thousands, spread across cultures, eras, and traditions. From ancient accounts in Vedic manuscripts and records of spontaneous healings in the deserts of Egypt, to modern reports documented by doctors who, even faced with the evidence, don't know what to write in the report. Diseases once considered irreversible disappearing after simple rituals. Tumors vanishing overnight. Instant healing. Regenerations that defy the known limits of biology. Science observes but doesn't understand, because it's looking in the wrong place. What these healings have in common isn't the external treatment, it's the internal shift. In all these cases, something inside the person transforms radically. It's not a desire to get better, it's surrender, a total letting go. As if for a moment they stopped resisting, stopped identifying with the pain, stopped trying to control, and simply allowed the intelligence of the field to act. And it does. When resistance gives way, energy starts to flow again. Stagnant emotions are released. Old traumas dissolve without conscious effort. There's such a deep change in the vibrational field that the body, without knowing how, responds with a speed that defies any linear logic. Thoth called this spontaneous realignment. It's not a mystical phenomenon. It's a direct consequence of a field reaching a certain level of coherence, as if the whole being, mind, body, spirit, finally came into agreement. And when that happens, what was considered disease becomes just a memory. And like any memory, it can be erased. But this reversal can't be forced. It doesn't happen to those waiting for something magical. It comes to those who stop waiting, who stop identifying with pain and start vibrating something new, even if the outside world hasn't changed yet. This is the point where the invisible acts stronger than the visible. That's why the ancient masters always said that healing wasn't an achievement. It was a consequence, a natural response to an inner state of truth. And that state can only be reached when the conditioned self goes quiet, when the story of suffering loses importance, when there's no longer a need to prove anything to others or to yourself. Conventional science still looks for physical proof, but the field already knows. And it's at this point that a pattern emerges, a common thread among all cases of deep and lasting healing. It doesn't matter the name of the disease. It doesn't matter how long it's been there. When the field vibrates at a certain frequency, it disappears, not by miracle. But because what was sustaining it no longer exists. And this pattern points directly to a final key. A key that doesn't add another technique or another theory. It closes the cycle. It seals the spiral. It completes the vibrational process and permanently transforms the relationship between being and body. Because from this point on, healing stops being a goal. It dissolves as a destination and becomes a state. You're no longer trying to heal. You are being a frequency that doesn't allow illness to remain. And that changes everything. The mind doesn't get it right away because it's been trained to achieve, to solve, to look for the next step. But when this final key clicks into place, there is no more seeking. There is presence. There is stability. There is a vibration so real, so coherent, that it becomes pure medicine. You no longer talk about healing. You radiate healing. People around you start to feel it. Some are drawn to you without knowing why. Others pull away because they can't handle the field you're holding. Environments shift. Situations dissolve before they even begin. And the most amazing part, your own body starts operating at a different rhythm, as if it has remembered its purpose. Thoth said, "Don't heal the body. Heal the field, and the body will follow. Because the body is a reflection. It's not the problem. It's the manifestation of what's vibrating behind it. When that field reaches a certain level of integrity, the body enters a new cycle. It no longer needs to defend itself. It no longer needs to store traumatic memories. It no longer needs to react. It becomes an extension of your vibrational state, not a battleground for old imbalances. You become the point of balance, and this isn't limited to health. It touches every area of your life. Relationships begin to refine. Your intuition expands. Time seems to slow down. Answers arrive before questions. What once felt hard to manifest now shows up with ease, because you're no longer trying to change the world. You have become the changed world. And this is what Thoth was truly teaching beneath all the symbolic layers, that you're not just a seeker. You are the field that manifests. You are the mirror of the whole. And when that awareness takes root, healing is no longer an isolated event. It becomes a way of existing. You start to move with a clear field, an open heart, a quiet mind, and a body in coherence. You become the medicine itself. And if you've made it this far, it wasn't by accident. The universe nudged you here because you were ready to remember, ready to let go, ready to vibrate. But this path doesn't end with healing, because now something even deeper begins. And if you've made it this far, it's because the universe brought you. So drop a comment. I felt the calling. I am the field. That phrase isn't just a sign. It anchors the vibration you just awakened. And if you want to help the channel more directly, there's a special space to contribute and support this mission in the first pinned comment. That way, together, we can spread more content like this out there. And before you go, pay attention. I picked a special video for you to take the next step on this journey. It's going to pop up on the screen. Click it and let's meet over there, because what's coming is even deeper.